Hey guys, I'm Brian Crissetti with the Nintendo E3 Network. There's been some breaking news right now. Mr. Konno, Mr. Aonuma, and Mr. Miyamoto are holding a roundtable. There's been a lot of speculation about what these guys are going to say, so let's go check it out.
じゃあ始めましょう。
Okay, let's get started.
ようこそ。
Welcome.
The roundtable was held between the developers and game industry insiders. It started with the attendees experiencing the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 3DS.
オカリナ遊ばれたことのある人はどれぐらいいらっしゃいます
So
か
can you please raise your hand if you played Ocarina of Time?
で、それが大変だったなって思った人どのくらいい
How
ます
many people thought, boy, that was really tough?
After Mr. Miyamoto and Mr. Aonuma went into more detail about Ocarina of Time, they moved on to a deeper discussion of the Nintendo 3DS with Mr. Konno.
Once we got the 3DS screens in, we decided that, this is something that could really take advantage of those 3D graphical effects. So, but of course, if all we were to do was take these games and port them over to Nintendo 3DS, then we would just have a collection of old games with 3D visuals. So we've been talking with the teams and looking at ways that we can improve the games and looking at new features that we can add that weren't in the originals. When you're playing a game in a fully rendered world, like in a Mario game, for example, it can be very difficult without 3D visuals to understand the depth and the distance between objects and that spatial relationship. Once you have 3D visuals to go along with that fully rendered world, all of that becomes very clear and easy to understand.
Then Mr. Konno went into more detail about another newly announced game, Nintendogs Plus Cats.
I'd hoped to keep this title, safe and secret for E3 and announce it here. Unfortunately, last year, Mr. Miyamoto made the announcement that he got a cat. We're using the inner camera this time, and we use the inner camera to recognize the player's face. If you get close, you put your face close to the screen, the dog will come up close to the screen and actually lick your face. It's adorable.
The biggest part of the roundtable was the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
Hopefully many of you were at our presentation this morning and you hopefully saw me on stage doing what was supposed to be a spectacular playthrough of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword that ended unfortunately somewhat shamefully for me.
あの後、実際に触っていただいた方どれぐらいおられますか
So how many people have actually had a chance to play Skyward Sword since the presentation this morning? Now I'd like to ask the question to those people, how many of you after playing realized that what happened on stage was in fact wireless interference and had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that the game is poorly tuned? Could you please raise your hands?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
Now, of course, some of this is related directly to Wii Motion Plus. That's obviously the sword, the ability to wield your sword freely like this, and the ability to change items instantaneously. This is something that we've been, mechanism that we've been wanting to do with the Legend of Zelda series for a long time.
In terms of where we're going now with development, we have a few more dungeons to create, and we're looking at creating some more challenging bosses. But for the most part, we're kind of in the final stretch at this point. And so I do feel that because the gameplay structure is so solid at this point, that we are in a good pace and are going to be able to put it together relatively quickly. One of our objectives is, I think one of the reasons that people really continue to come back to the Zelda franchise is because the core gameplay is something that inherently is fun.